Hello. We are at a public park today. I'm at the back of it. We may have some interruptions, some people may be able to hear some people off in the distance. We'll see how it goes. So here we are with our Forest Folklore, our wonderful book. And I am so excited. We are at chapter 5, Trees. And this chapter is well over 100 pages, but there are many sections regarding different types of trees, all kinds of different things, the worship of trees, trees as the origin, the shadow of trees, trees preside over marriages, so many different parts. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with trees in general. So, the remark of Ruskin, what a great thought of God was that when he thought a tree, epitomizes the tree in all its various aspects, considering its utility from every point of view, whether as contributing to the shelter of mankind by its timber or by its foliage, from the bitter blasts or from the torrid heat, or ministering to his aesthetic emotions by the beauty of the leaves and flowers, or providing for his sustenance by the luscious fruits and nourishing juices. The ancient Greeks called the oak the mother tree, because their mythology avers that after Jupiter had slain the giants, the oak sprang up from the body of one of them, called Rhoecus. I'll show you that word. This tree the Greeks looked upon as the first tree which grew upon earth, and which provided nourishment to men by its acorns. According to Galen, the Arcadians continued to feed on acorns when all the Greeks were using cereals. In fact, primitive man seems to have nourished himself largely on acorns and nuts of various kinds, which diet was in no way detrimental to him, as they being fed with the oaken mast, the aged trees themselves in age surpassed. To the imagination of early man, a tree, being the largest of plants, must have presented a marvelous and bewildering aspect. In some countries, he would see it bare and withered, looking during winter. Sorry about that. I'm going to say that again. In some countries, he would see it bare and withered looking during winter. But as soon as the first breath of spring was wafted over the land, a wondrous transformation would commence. Gradually, the leaves would unfold, day after day, becoming larger and of a more vivid green, until in the height of summer, a verdant canopy would overshadow all the forest, and man in his nakedness would feel grateful for the welcome shade afforded from the overpowering rays of the sun. To the tree, this would assign a supernatural intelligence, and would regard it as a sentient being. As the summer wore on and the autumn days drew nigh, the kaleidoscope changes in the leaf coloring would anew rivet his attention. And as the days passed, the fall of the leaves would fill him with a presentiment of evil, which would be realized by the trees becoming again bare and apparently lifeless, leaving him shelterless against the biting blasts of winter. As year after year passed with the same continual changefulness, trees, or perhaps one outstanding tree, on account of its size and age, would come to be regarded with an especial reverence, and primitive imagination would people it with all sorts of beings, such as gods, nymphs, and demons. A curious fact found among the Khasya tribe of eastern Bengal is that the words meaning tree and house are practically the same, which would appear to indicate that in primeval times the ancestors of that tribe had their habitations in hollow trees. In this prosaic age, too little is thought about trees and the romance connected with them. Their sweet music as the summer breezes play gently through their foliage gives a certain peace to existence to the loiterers among the woodlands, and to the imaginative mind the tree appears to have many moods which one can understand and sympathize with. As Dr. Quito remarked, the tree seems to have stood among and to have witnessed the ever-changing panorama of human life, and we know that it has been itself an object of notice, and has ministered some pleasure in past ages to eyes long quenched in dust. Writers in all ages have used trees by way of illustration, and Homer frequently embellishes his subjects with references to them. In the poems of Ossian, and following beautiful passage occurs in Malvina's lamentation for Oscar. The passage goes, I was a lovely tree in thy presence, Oscar, with all my branches round me. But thy death came like a blast from the desert, and laid my green head low. The spring returned with its showers, but no green leaf of mine arose. Again, when old and weary, blind and almost destitute of friends, Ossian compares himself to a tree that is withered and decayed. But Ossian is a tree that is withered. Its branches are blasted and bare. No green leaf covers its boughs. From its trunk no young shoot is seen to spring. The breeze whistles in its grey moss. The blast shakes its head of age. The storm will soon overturn it and strew all its dry branches with thee, O Dermid, and with all the rest of the mighty dead in the green winding vale of Kona. In very remote conceptions of mythology, there appears to have been no distinction drawn between the trees growing on the earth and those which imagination conceived as growing in the sky. As soon, however, as the ambrosia, the divine life-giving fluid, fell upon the earth, the trees there took on a different character from the sky trees, and seeded and multiplied. But since that time, unlike the latter, their life, like the life of man, has been limited in duration. The ancient Persians considered the tree to be the emblem of human existence, owing to the changes which it undergoes during the various seasons, and it was also regarded as a type of immortality, owing to its lengthened period of life. A number of venerable and umbrageous trees were believed to be inhabited by celestial spirits. These were looked upon as peculiarly sacred trees. And the great spirit Ormuzd, speaking to Zoroaster, said, Go, O Zoroaster, to the living trees, and let thy mouth speak before them these words. I pray to the pure trees, the creatures of Ormuzd. The Magians were obliged by the precepts of their religion to cultivate the soil, and they considered it a most meritorious act to plant a tree. A tree has often been conceived of as a kind of republic or an agglomeration of isolated beings, and de Candolle opined the forest giants to be so many aggregates of individuals, or buds, annually succeeding on the stem which represents a living soul. An analogy has been drawn between coral and a tree. The coral insect constructing the coral branches in a somewhat similar way to the individuals of the tree constructing the boughs. This is not so far-fetched as might appear when we remember that each leaf may be looked upon as a separate being possessing mouths for respiration, and so helping to nourish the whole bulk of the tree. Edward Gibbon speaks of the city of Rome under the allegory of a tree. He says, amidst the arms of the Lombards and under the despotism of the Greeks, we again inquire into the fate of Rome, which had reached about the close of the 6th century the lowest period of her depression. By the removal of the seat of empire and the successive loss of the provinces, the sources of public and private opulence were exhausted. The lofty tree under whose shade the nations of the earth had reposed was deprived of its leaves and branches, and the sapless trunk was left to wither on the ground. The primitive races of mankind believed that trees possessed souls, and Captain Cook said that the natives of Tahiti believe that the souls of trees at death ascend to the divinity with whom they at first mix, and thereafter each one passes into the particular mansion allotted to it. The ancient Greek philosophers also attributed intellect and sense to trees. Naturally, when a soul was given to a tree, it was likewise endowed with the power of speech. This speech is often in a mysterious, emblematical, or silent language, which, however, often makes itself heard. It may be in the creaking of the branches or in the leaf rustling in the breeze. Many trees have even taken human speech, as the cornel tree, in which Polydorus spoke, or in the juniper tree mentioned by the author of the 17th century, named Locenius, which was indignant and cried out when it was pulled up. In Burma, the temples were surrounded with trees because the first holy men dwelt in the forest and worshipped under the shade of the trees. And thus, each succeeding incarnation of the Buddha had a connection with some particular tree. The Scandinavian god Odin had human victims regularly offered to him, and these were put to death by being hung on a tree and stabbed with a spear. One of his titles was God of the Hanged, or Lord of the Gallows, and the Hamaval tells how, when young, he was sacrificed to himself in the same way, and represents him as saying, "I know that I hung on the windy tree for 9 whole nights, wounded with the spear, dedicated to Odin, myself to myself." His mysterious wisdom came to him during the period of this ordeal. In some countries, it is believed that trees suffer from the evil eye as well as men, so much so that if one looks with evil intent upon a tree, that tree is considered to be cursed. Professor de Gubernatus mentions several instances of this. He says that several trees are indebted for their evil reputation to the curse of some divine personage, and many were cursed by the Virgin Mary during the flight into Egypt. A Bulgarian song mentions the cursing of 3 trees by her, and adds that she afterwards went to a convent and there confessed her outburst of temper. In India, if a native marries a widow, as this kind of union is usually attended by fatal consequences, he hurls his curse on an expiatory tree, which absorbs all the future evils, and at the same time perishes. Schweinfurth, during his travels in Central Africa, found this superstition prevalent among the Nubians, and tells how the inhabitants of a certain village showed him the branch of a colossal tree, Ficus lutea, which had fallen simply because a warrior, in passing it, had cast on it the evil eye. There was a belief once current in Ireland that if one confides a dream he has had to a tree, that tree at once loses its leaves and withers, and this because dreams were considered to be the work of the devil.